combining pods together. So we are going to make a very complex code arrangement with all these different pods and plugs that you see here. I will walk step by step so you know what is happening and how to explain it. But first of all, what we are going to do is we will start with a loop. So we are going to make what is called an infinity loop. In some coding, it's referred to as void loop, if you're familiar with like Arduino or any kind of C language. So we're going to first plug in the loop pod here. Oops, I plugged it in the wrong way. We're going to plug in the loop pod, the short end, and then we're going to take this plug here, has a little infinity symbol on it. I'm going to plug that into this dial. So now it is going to loop basically forever. And even if we press this, it sometimes burps when it doesn't work well. But if this was connected, it would say loop infinity times, do whatever's here, and the loop. So we have our main loop set up right here. Actually, I'm going to plug it into here so that we can do some percussion sounds. We have our main infinity loop here, and what we are going to do is we are going to start with a conditional. So we are going to start with this conditional here, and we're going to add what is called a variable. These gray plugs here that have a headphone jack on one end and a port on the other, these represent variables. Variables are stand-ins in code for specific numbers or integers, and we are going to have this code essentially say that x is going to be x plus 1. So we have the plus sign here, the positive increment plug, and if we plug this right into the top of that variable plug, and we plug it right into here, we now then in the code would have x equals x plus 1. So essentially, if we plug this into our loop, it would loop through this if-else conditional statement, and it would increase this integer by 1 each time that it loops through. So right now, we're going to start off with if x is greater than the number 4.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
So we have an infinity loop of if x is greater than 4, do this, else do whatever is connected here. So for the first section, we are going to have another loop inside of here with a play pod. There's going to be loops within loops. So we're going to plug in the shorter end of this new loop pod into this side. So when this condition is true, it'll do this loop here. And we will set the loop to 2.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
And then we're going to loop twice this play pod here. And right now, this is just set at a cowbell, I believe. It is set at a cowbell for half-time speed. And if we plug this and end the loop, we have that right there. So right now, we have an infinity loop going. It is going to continuously loop through whatever we connect here. We have an if-then statement, a conditional statement. So if x, which is x plus 1, is greater than 4, it'll play this loop here. Else, if it is not, we're going to plug in another play pod. Let's see, let's try this one more time. Get that to snap. Did it register? It's not registering for some reason. Okay, there we go. All right. So, infinity loop, we're gonna check if x, which is x plus 1, is greater than 4, we will do this loop. Else if, we will do this play pod here, and then I am going to grab a merger so that, well, let's see here. We're going to merge this for now so that you can just hear what this is. And then we will loop this back around so that we can close off the loop in the merger. It's a little jumbled. But we have this infinity loop here that starts with the if-then statement. If this is true, it'll do this sound here, else it'll do that sound. And so it'll start off with x. X is going to be 0 in this case, so it's going to check and see if x is greater than 1, which it's not. It'll play this, and then it will loop back around and add another 1 to that x integer. So you can ask the participants at this point, what do you think, what sound will it play? We have this sound over here, which is the conga drum. We'll do that at 1 time speed. And then this one, let's do a hi-hat at 1 time speed. You can ask them, what do you think it'll do? And then you can play the code. No, back. Okay, and you can play the code.
Thread 2 percussion. Loop infinity times. X equals x plus 1. If x is greater than 4. Loop 2 times. Play conga drum for 1 time speed. End loop. Else. Play hi-hat 2 for 1 time speed. End if. End loop. End thread.
Okay. So I had to hit stop on that, otherwise it would continuously loop forever. So you'll notice that it did do the conga bell, it did do the conga drum 4 times, and then it went over to the hi-hat 2 for 4 times. It can only count up to 8, so that is why you heard this 4 times, and then you heard this another 4 times, and then it started over. Because this X variable can only go up to 8, so you have the first round is 1, it's checking if 1 is greater than 4, if 2 is greater than 4, if 3 is greater than 4, so on and so forth. All the way up to is 8 greater than 4.
5.
Once it gets to that,
4.
it starts back all over. So this is where we can add some fun pause pods in here. Because you'll notice it went really quick and fast. So we are going to add a pause pod, and we're going to add it in the end of the loop here. I'm going to throw in a little pause there, and then we're going to close that off. And then we're going to add one more play pod, so after it does the loop with the if-then conditional, we're going to go outside of that conditional and end with one constant sound, which we will set to a cowbell. Let's do a cowbell. And we'll pause. So we got some time in between. So this right now
1 beat.
is 1 beat. Let's try this again. And this is
1 beat. 2 beats.
we'll do it for
A quarter beat. 2 beats.
2 beats. And then I'm going to close off that loop. So right now, you can explain again, and this is going to be the tricky part. You can kind of have the students feel through the different pods to see what it's doing. This is a really good one to walk step by step to break it down, kind of like I've shown you here with just this one loop and then that one sound, and then adding on the pauses at the ends. So we have our infinity loop. It's going to loop through all of this. So it'll come in, come to this if-then conditional statement. It'll say x equals x plus 1. So to start, x will be 1. If 1 is greater than 4, which it's not, it's going to play this sound, which is our hi-hat 2 for 1 time speed. It'll do that, and then it'll come through here and play the cowbell for 1 time speed, and then pause for 2 beats, and then it will go back through the loop again. So it'll essentially play this outer loop here 4 times, because then you'll have this x will equal 4, and 4 is not greater than 4. So it'll continue to this side here and go into this loop. So it'll loop 2 times this sound here. It'll pause and then play the cowbell, pause again, and go back. So it'll go through here and then around for 4 times, and then it starts all over because it can only go up to 8. So let me move that back to 1. If you want to hear what the code sounds like, we'll do that.
Thread 2 percussion. Loop infinity times. X equals x plus 1. If x is greater than 4. Loop 2 times. Play conga drum for 1 times speed. And loop. Pause for 1 beat. Else. Play hi-hat 2 for 1 times speed. And if. Play cowbell for 1 times speed. Pause for 2 beats. And loop. And thread.
Then you can also ask participants, what do you think it'll sound like? And you can have a lot of fun with that. You know, being encouraging and supportive as much as you can, and then you can play and have them test and see. So we're going to play. Alright, so we are back at the loop again, so we'll hit pause. I'm going to move this down
A quarter beat, half a beat, 1
to
beat.
1 beat and do this for half a beat.
2 beats, 1 half a beat.
So it went through, it did this 4 times, so it played our hi-hat, then it played the cowbell, did that again, up to 3 times, because the 4th time around, 4 is greater than 4, is not greater than 4. So then it's going to play this here, and then it will move on and continue the cowbell just like before, and voila. Play it one more time. The last part is we are going to edit our loop a little bit. We have our larger loop and this little loop here that plays our conga drum. Right here at the end of this if-else statement, we're going to add an x variable and we're going to set it to a constant of 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to play this loop out here. It'll do that 4 times, and then when it gets into this loop right here, it'll do that once, because at the end of this loop right here, it's going to reset x to 1, so that when we get back out and come around, X will now equal 1, so it'll continue to do this outer loop right here. So what you'll have is the sound of the hi-hat 4 times. It'll be hi-hat, cowbell, hi-hat, cowbell, hi-hat, cowbell, hi-hat, and cowbell, and then it'll come in, do this loop. It'll do the conga drum twice. It'll reset X to 1, play the cowbell, and then it'll come back and then redo this because X is going to equal 1. Therefore, this statement is not true, so it's going to do the else, which is the hi-hat. If we want to listen to the code,
Thread 2 percussion. Loop infinity times. X equals X plus 1. If X is greater than 4. Loop 2 times. Play conga drum for 1 times speed. End loop. X equals 1. Pause for X. Else. Play hi-hat 2 for 1 times speed. And if. Play cowbell for 1 times speed. Pause for 1 beat. End loop. End thread.
alright, so if we listen to it, we should hear this 4 times, and then the conga drum twice, and then back to the 4 times. So you will notice it only played that conga drum once, whereas before it did it 4 times until it got up to that variable 8 and then restarted all over again. So this is the final complex void loop if then else statements to kind of show more how complex code can get and how you can use variables and reset loops and have some fun making some cool sounds.